Yes, we're early today. Tuesdays are always uncertain. Life is uncertain.
I think it's boring and mundane this week.
Who said that?
Futility reigns in my life this week. Same old, same old, same old. Oh, never mind. Wine, wine, wine. Greetings and peace from the Sprouts parking lot.
Speaking of peace, we saw a speech by John F. Kennedy just six
in
months.
June of, I think, 1963.
Yep.
A peace speech. Watch it. It's long. You'll find it. It's so timely. It's a piece about it. Anyway, well, greetings. I am going off to try to find some vegetables so I can make the same old, same old. I'm having
Get
trouble.
some vegetables, dear.
I'm having trouble with this today. I'm having trouble with a boring routine today, and the week seems to go by way too fast, too, considering. Anyway, bye. You have a good day. I'll do something creative and unique, because I don't think I'm going to.
Yes, you're going to have to make up for both of us, probably here. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going
You
to...
shut us off.
Okay, I'm going to flip it around. I'm wearing the kind of straw hat my Grandpa Dewey wore. Grandpa Dewey, the blacksmith in western Nebraska. Have I told you about my grandfather? He's the one that at a Thanksgiving dinner when I was about 5, I sat right across the table from him at Thanksgiving dinner or a 4th of July dinner. I forget what it was. But, well, here's a person just pulling right up next to me for no reason. Anyway, I was kind of awed by him because it was Nebraska and I was from California, and I was sort of delirious from the car ride from California to Nebraska. And there was no television, and you had to go out in the back to an outhouse to go to the bathroom. And it was like going back into cowboy days. Why am I getting off on this? So, but anyway, Grandpa Dewey. He's the one that was the bastard son of William Lake, the rodeo or the Wild West show Roman writer guy. I wrote a song about it. But anyway, he was old and really grumpy and crabby, and he dipped the giant serving spoon that was stuck in a giant bowl of hot mashed potatoes, and he took a big scoop of those mashed potatoes, and he said, "Hey, Ronnie." He never knew. He probably knew my name, but he never called me, "Hey, Ronnie." And I look up like that, and I'm kind of scared, and I'm looking at my plate, and he says, "Did you ever have this done to you?" And then he flips that scalding hot mashed potato lump right in my face. Well, but I've forgotten all about it. Anyway, I thought I would do something kind of unique, and hopefully, especially for my friends who are interested in Masonry and Freemasonry or curious about it, or if you are a Mason or a co-Mason, you get a kick out of this. Okay, when I was 50 years old, yeah, so we're talking We're talking quite a few. I'm 74 right now. When I was 50 years old, I joined the Masons. Okay. Now, at that time, I had been studying in a very serious way occultism, ceremonial magic, things like that, for about 25 years. And I was pretty aware of the esoteric aspect of Freemasonry, or at least I had a pretty thorough idea of what it was about. I'd been in the OTO a long time. OTO was sort of founded originally as a Masonic academy. The degree structure of the OTO retains many of the similarities of the degree structure and things like that, only as it applies esoterically. So I was everything but a Mason itself, and I thought it was just about time. Now, my dad was a Mason, and so I tried to join as close as I could his lodge. And his lodge, over the years, got absorbed into a larger regional lodge there in Southern California. So I joined the lodge that his lodge melted into. And the year I joined, one of our Monday night class members was the worshipful master that year. And so he got, not only did I have sort of an in at the lodge, but as soon as I proved proficient in my third degree, I was appointed chaplain of that lodge, where I served for, I think, 2 years at that time, and I skipped a year, I think, and then did a couple more years as chaplain later. Long story, about the same time, I joined my dad's old Scottish Rite. And let's see here if I've got something. Now, the Scottish Rite is what's known as a concordant body. And let's see here. So when you're a Master Mason or a third degree, that's as high as you go. Okay. Every other kind of concordant body that you may be a member of just is sort of like a lateral movement. It's another thing. It's not higher than the third degree. It's just different. Okay, and you don't have to join any of those bodies to be a full-fledged Master Mason. And I'm talking about in the United States anyway, how those things work. And like here is a chart, and you won't be able to see it very well, but it's got the Blue Lodge, if you will, right in the middle, Entered Apprentice, Fellow Craft, and Master Mason. And then you can, and here it shows the York Rite, if you want to go what we call the York Rite here in the United States, or what is popular is the Scottish Rite that goes up to 32 degrees. And that Scottish Rite is made up of the different sections. There's the Council Princes of Jerusalem. There's the chapter of Rose Croix. There's Council of Kadosh, and the consistory that goes the top two degrees, goes 32 degrees. Anyway, same year I joined the Masons. A couple months later, I took the degrees of the Scottish Rite. Now there's 32 degrees, 4 through 32 of the Scottish Rite. And most American Masons nowadays just actually receive a handful of the landmark degrees of the Scottish Rite. In other words, they mostly because they don't have the opportunity, because these are elaborate ceremonies, and to have 29 elaborate ceremonies, not every jurisdiction has the wherewithal for these elaborate sets, costuming, and things like that. But in Long Beach, they do. And so after you generally become a 32nd degree Mason just by going through 5 initiations that give you those landmark degrees. Then you can sign up to get all of them. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way to 32. So not many jurisdictions do that. And at the time, Long Beach, the jurisdiction that I joined, did. But it took a whole another year. For every Friday, you would show up again and see 1 or 2 of these degrees that hardly anybody gets to see in their full capacity. And so I did that along with my brother Jonathan Taylor. We made a weekly pilgrimage to do it. Well, at those specific degree ceremonies, prior to that, there is like a 10-minute class. They usually went to 20 minutes or so, that all of the people getting ready to take the degree have to attend an orientation class. And especially when you get up to the chapter of Rose Croix, 18th degree and stuff, they start talking about the Qabalah a lot. And so after I got all my degree tickets punched, the next class that came up the following year, I was asked to do the Qabalah lecture prior to the beginning of starting with the 18th degree. And I'm going to read you my lecture. Okay, got to remember I had handouts, and the handouts had a black and white version of the Tree of Life. The handouts had a very, very simple Hebrew alphabet with a chart with the numbers, the English equivalent, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, A, B, G, and the numbers that they represented. And like Aleph means ox, and Bet means house or enclosure, and things like that. Very, very simple. And of course, I had a chart, a big giant pad. I had a Tree of Life in Hebrew and stuff written on it. And here is what I had to say. If you've stayed with me so far, here's what I said. After I introduced myself, or somebody introduced me, and the chicken Qabalah had just come out. Okay, so I had chicken Qabalahs, and a lot of the guys had chicken Qabalah. And there was about, I would say, 25 people in the class. I had studied the Qabalah for 25 years before I joined the Scottish Rite, and was privileged to audit all the degrees presented here in Long Beach. My familiarity with Kabbalistic concepts amplified my appreciation of the rituals, and I felt bad for some of the others in the class who were missing out on many of the symbolic treasures presented in each ritual. If you were lucky enough to have a Morals and Dogma, that's the classic Albert Pike book that was given to every 32nd degree Mason for nearly a century. And but it's so thick, every Mason had one, or every Scottish Rite Mason had one, and very few ever read it. Okay. If you're lucky enough to have a Morals and Dogma with the digest index at the end, you'll notice that there are no less than 65 direct references to Qabalah. In addition, there are literally hundreds of additional references to Kabbalistic concepts, traditions, and buzzwords. In the index to our Bridge to Light, now Bridge to Light is a wonderful book, and you can get it anywhere. Bridge to Light by Rex Hutchinson. This is what they give out now at the 32nd degree, or this is when I took it, that they were giving these out once you got to the 32nd degree. In the index to our A Bridge to Light, we find 35 direct entries for Qabalah, and the text is also filled with many additional Kabbalistic references. Obviously, the Qabalah should be a subject of interest to Scottish Rite Masons. The Qabalah is a huge subject, and we're obviously not going to learn very much in the 10 minutes or so we have tonight. But let's at least try to scratch a tiny bit of the surface. I'll talk fast, and I should be around afterwards to answer questions and try to lure you out in the parking lot to buy my book. I wasn't kidding. Okay, what is Qabalah? Let's start by learning what it is not. Qabalah is not a religion. We often hear the Qabalah referred to as Hebrew mysticism, which is accurate up to a point. But more than that, Qabalah, like Freemasonry, is non-sectarian and opens her mysteries to sincere and diligent seekers of any and all religious persuasions. Qabalah is not a belief system. I'm going to roll up my window here, like I do every week this time. Qabalah is not a belief system. Although there are a number of Orthodox institutions that apply the tools of Kabbalistic thought to engage in exegesis upon various scriptures they hold sacred, the Qabalah itself is not a belief system. Rather, it's a way of looking at things. It's a way of organizing the universe so neatly that we eventually can discover our own place in it. It is a way of connecting absolutely everything in the universe with absolutely everything else until eventually we achieve a level of consciousness in which we realize there is nothing left to connect. The Qabalah is not a book. But there are many Kabbalistic texts, including key books of the Torah and Talmud and the New Testament, Kabbalistic tradition, and as Masons, we know that traditional history and history are sometimes two different things. Kabbalistic tradition holds that these texts, and many others not so well known, were crafted by mystics possessed of profound understanding of the universe and the mysteries of human existence. At a time when writing was a mystery reserved for priests and royalty, they used poetry and parables to express thoughts that everyday language could not accommodate. They assembled phrases with great art from individual words that conveyed an even deeper level of truth. And finally, each word was made up of unique symbolic letters, each of which revealed yet another story. A story so profound and abstract, it could only be told and understood in the pure language of numbers and mathematics. These sages were full-time holy guys. They wrote this stuff for other full-time holy guys. And the tiny segment of every generation who would be equipped with the intelligence, the spiritual drive, and yes, the leisure time necessary to embark upon a lifelong quest for enlightenment. I believe that Albert Pike expected Scottish Rite Masons to be among this elite category of seeker. And I'll pause to point out that I'm a Scottish Rite of the southern jurisdiction in the United States. There's a northern jurisdiction too, which they're a little different in structure and details. On page 112 of A Bridge to Light, Dr. Hutchins writes the following concerning Qabalah. The cycle of closeness to and distance from God experienced by the Hebrews found expression in the deeply symbolic mysticism that arose in medieval Judaism. Of whatever origins, I like that he put that. Of whatever origins, the founders of this system sought to create a purely symbolic and primarily numerological expression of the relationship of deity to man. Even a name was given to distinguish the Kabbalistic concept of God from that of conventional Judaism. Ein Sof. The inexpressible, incomprehensible, ineffable divine source of all things, unquote. Now, Ein Sof roughly translates limitless nothing, and it's one of the three levels of negative existence, if we can call it non-existence existence. Three levels of negative existence that Kabbalists say preceded creation. In the language of modern physics, it's the negative singularity that preceded the Big Bang. Now, that's pretty heavy stuff and not easy to think about. It's also impossible to talk about using our normal day-to-day language. That's why we needed another kind of language. Brother Hutchinson goes on to say, quote, an essential element in the formulation of this mystical theory was to effect an adequate means for the description of God within the limited framework of human language. This was accomplished by transcending the language through numerological symbolism. You'll regularly hear references made to the numerology of the Qabalah in the rituals of the degrees of the Scottish Rite. The most important point to remember is that the Hebrew letters were given number equivalents so that every word was itself a number, the sum of the numerical values of its individual letters, unquote. Now, this is back to me talking to the class. I'm just briefly going to give you one example of how this is done. Please take a look at your handout. That is the table of Hebrew letters. Here are the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. 5 of them appear differently when they are placed at the end of a word. You'll notice that each of them represents a number and has a specific meaning. If your name happens to be Al, now my good friend, almost lifelong friend now, Al Turek, Scottish Rite brother, and is now a big wig in the Scottish Rite there in Long Beach. Congratulations, Al. If your name happens to be Al, like Al Turek, it would be spelled Aleph Lamed. Aleph is 1 and means ox, and Lamed is 30 and means ox goad. I guess this means that Al is self-motivated. Much laughter in the room. Okay. In Hebrew, Al is the root of the word God. If you spell it backwards, L-A or Lamed Aleph, it means not or nothing. Can you see the possibilities here? Another brief example is the Hebrew word for riches and power. It is spelled Daleth Bet Aleph, or DBA. The 3 letters add to the sacred number 7. Now, if we spell riches or power, if we spell DBA backwards, we get the word ABD, which means lost or ruined. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that the opposite of riches and power is loss and ruin. The order and meaning of the individual Hebrew letters in these words also tells a simple but profound story. The word riches, DBA, suggests a door. Daleth means a door. A door, Daleth, or D, to a house, a barn, or an enclosure, represented by the letter B, which opens to receive an ox, Aleph, or A, the ox being an ancient symbol of wealth. However, the word loss or ruin reverses the letters and suggests the ox, A, of wealth finds the barn's door, BD, and escapes, or put it bluntly, door plus barn plus ox. Good. Ox plus barn plus door. Bad. We could play with this all night. Actually, we could play with this for the rest of our lives. But we've got a long night ahead of us. Let's finish up what Brother Hutchins has to say in A Bridge to Light. Quote, as well, concise yet complex diagrams were created to explain the nature of deity. Chief among these was called the Tree of Life. This was a diagram variously designed to illustrate the 10 emanations from or manifestations of deity called Sephiroth. Unquote. Let's take a look at the first diagram of the Tree of Life. It was one of my handouts. The one with Ein Sof at the top. You'll notice that there are 10 circles which are joined by 22 paths. The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet will find a home on the paths. But what are the 10 circles? Where did they come from? The 10 circles are called Sephiroth, which means roughly emanations. Just as there can only be one absolute deity, there is really only one Sephiroth. Only one Sephirah, singular. the top one. The other 9 are just what we see when we look at the top Sephirah with progressively darker sunglasses. Because we're made in the image of deity, the tree of life is also a map of ourselves. The 3 pillars are reminiscent of our Masonic 3 pillars: wisdom, strength, and beauty. The 10 Sephiroth also represent 10 levels of consciousness. The number 10 at the bottom is the most mundane and earthly, and number 1 at the top is the consciousness of supreme deity. Why are there 10 Sephiroth is a long and interesting story, and has to do partially with the fact that we have 10 fingers. But I have to wrap it up now. I can't think of a better way to do this than for us to hear from Brother Albert Pike himself. And this is a quote from Morals and Dogma. One is filled with admiration on penetrating into the sanctuary of the Qabalah, at seeing a doctrine so logical, so simple, and at the same time so absolute. The necessary union of ideas and signs, the consecration of the most fundamental realities by primitive characters, the trinity of words, letters, and numbers. A philosophy simple as the alphabet and profound and infinite as the word. Theorems more complete and luminous than those of Pythagoras, a theology summed up by counting on one's fingers. An infinite which can be held in the hollow of an infant's hand. 10 ciphers, 22 letters, a triangle, a square, and a circle. These are the elements of the Qabalah. They are the elementary principles of the written word, reflection of that spoken word that created the world. Thank you very much, and enjoy tonight's degrees. Well, there you were, a fly on the wall at my degree lecture prior to the Long Beach Scottish Rite Body's performance. I guess we could call it performance, whatever you choose to call it. I forget what the real technical word is, of the 18th degree of the Scottish Rite. Anyway, that's it. Sorry I started a little bit earlier. I hope you will eventually see this today and join us tomorrow. So until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.